Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healing and Freedom Journey. Mark DeJesus here. I am your brother from another mother, bringing you insights along the way. I'm all about mental, emotional, yes, and relationship health too. And if you are too, then you have arrived at a great place. Today, what I want to get into is another broadcast on the subject of boundaries, a very important subject that we all need to embrace and a subject we all need to learn to make a part of our lives and our journey. It's not only an aspect of healthy relationships, it's also fueled by a growing sense of what love really is. We're learning in our healing and freedom journey what love is, what it's not, learning to untangle ourselves from dysfunctional patterns that keep us from living and experiencing fruitful lives and fruitful relationship interactions. And today what I want to get into, though, is why is it such a struggle? Why do we battle with this so much? People say, you need more boundaries. You need to practice boundaries. You need to say no more. You need to do this, right? But why? Why is it difficult? Why is it so challenging? So I want to get into, and today I've got about 13 areas I'm going to briefly cover. And you'll find yourself somewhere in the midst of these, because some of these will go deep into the heart. Some of them are just practical, everyday things we need to understand that prevent us from experiencing the fruit of healthy boundaries in our life. So let's get honest about it and do this in compassionate grace. Don't beat yourself up. Don't shame yourself. Don't shame other people about it. Let it be something that leads you into sobriety, that you can start being illuminated so you can take some healthier steps in your life and in your journey. So the first reason we got to start here is you haven't been taught and equipped. We've not been taught through teaching and modeling the importance of boundaries and how to cultivate them. I know I didn't. Did you see your parents and people in leadership and people who you looked around to practicing healthy boundaries? Maybe some. I don't know necessarily that it was nobody, but it wasn't something that was taught and equipped in our lives. How to learn to make our yes, yes, and no, no, live single-mindedly, to know when to practice limitations, and that's actually okay, and expressing that you have weaknesses or fatigue or tiredness. It's okay. It doesn't say something negative about you, that we all need times of breaks. I don't think we celebrated when somebody would take a break. I saw so many in ministry and in church never taking breaks, and they'd wear that as a badge of honor when it's actually incredibly unhealthy. And we needed to model times of rest, times of saying no, times of slowing down, times where we say, you know what, I can't help in that way, but here's what I can do. That's often a very practical way of expressing a boundary. I can't do that, but here's what I can do. So it's like not just a black and white, but here's what I can offer, and here's some of my limitations. I know that for me, I followed whatever pulled at me. Guilt called, I would respond. Someone was very demanding, I would respond. I became obsessive in my response, obsessive and compulsive. And there was a lot of neediness, the need to be needed, anxiousness. And then if I said no, I'd feel so guilty and backpedal on that, would have such a hard time. But listen, we only know what we know. So we weren't equipped. So with that in mind, you're going to need to do some learning. So I encourage you, find people that practice healthy boundaries. Ask them questions. Ask them what makes them tick. Learn from others that seem to be modeling even somewhat healthier behavior. Don't look for perfect people. They don't exist out there. But I found myself, even in my pastoring days, finding people that seem to manifest somewhat of health. I'd kind of be like, hey, you seem like you're doing a little bit better than me at this. And I would ask them questions. I'd take them out for lunch. I'd just kind of pick their brain and understand what drives and motivates their thinking to, and what kind of values do they live by to help them. Hang around people that practice it. Look for relationships that will help bring you to a higher level. Because people who don't practice boundaries, they tend to hang around other people that don't practice boundaries. And they all kind of just sulk in each other's dysfunction. an important step we need to take in being around people that practice calling us to a higher level of how we practice our relationship world. Okay, second area is that many Christians have learned to live boundaryless lives in how they serve and help. And maybe this isn't you, but I'm speaking from my own journey. It was a lot of, you got to say yes to everything. I even heard it out of certain people's mouths. I never say no to ministry. I never say no to this. We were taught give endlessly with no learning on how to refill. So it produced a very performance-driven environment and a lot of burnout. And in the long run, a lot of resentful, burned out people. So we would emphasize the scripture, bear one another's burdens, and we'd leave out the verse that said each one is to bear his own load. So we didn't understand the balance of how to live interdependently with each other. And instead, we became more codependent or enmeshed or needy and let that drive everything. And so people were made to feel guilty when they would take a break or take time off. And some people couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle the stillness or the nothingness. So they just never said no. They just kept going. But what it produced in the long run wasn't healthy believers. So we learned to live boundaryless, kind of just letting people and just cross boundaries over and over again. And maybe you found yourself falling into that and then realizing, okay, I gotta start learning how to structure my relational life with some better boundaries. Number 3, this one gets into the issues of our heart, which is unhealed brokenness. If you struggle with boundaries, it goes back to broken issues of the heart. Because those broken issues of the heart, they drive many to become emotional saviors or rescuers, constant doers, constant busybodies, and never-ending servers, helpers. If you find yourself where you're just constantly serving, constantly doing, and then when you take breaks, you feel so empty inside, and you try to resolve it with more doing, and then you get back into that high. It's another area of realizing areas of brokenness that need to be tended to. Because we're not human doers, we're human beings. And yes, we are supernaturally empowered by God's grace. That doesn't mean that we're superhuman people that have, we're not Superman. Superman's a good comic book, but it's not who we are. And so it takes discernment to understand that these unhealed, broken areas of our lives drive us oftentimes to be super doers. So the idea of saying no, turning off for a little bit, taking a break, having limitations is a very, very foreign concept. Number 4 is our relationships are driven too much by guilt. I talk a lot about this, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But if you're going to learn boundaries, you're going to have to learn sometimes that you feel guilt. And you're going to have to recognize this toxic guilt. And you'll have to learn not to serve it as your master. Because many people live under it, and they live their lives alleviating guilt, compulsively trying to make themselves feel better. And when I'm driven by guilt in my relationship with you, the relationship is actually no longer about you. It's about me feeling better. I know. That's tough, right? But it's true. I'll say it again. If I'm driven in our relationship by guilt, it's now not really going to be about me loving you. It's going to be about me feeling better and okay about myself by trying to alleviate guilt. And toxic guilt is very sadistic because you get relief momentarily and then it comes back again. And most people do, too many do things out of, I feel bad. I'm doing this because I feel bad. I'm doing this because I feel bad. Many of us need an I feel bad detox so we can actually free ourselves up to what love is actually doing in our lives, because guilt isn't love. Number 5 is we feel responsible in a false way. We feel responsible for other people's choices and their journey. So we take it on. We take on what other people are doing, like into our own being. Many of you are firstborns, and you acted like this in the family. You took on the weight of the family. You took on the burden of what people are going through. You felt responsible. But false responsibility makes you feel compulsive. You keep doing things without boundaries, and you do it to feed your guilt, not to actually walk in the clarity that love will bring you, because many times love will say, you know what? Don't do anything here. Just wait. Because the Holy Spirit works in compassionate grace. And many times we need to know, you know what? Right here, don't do anything about this. Just sit, maybe pray about it. But if we're always used to living in this guilt, then we'll always jump into that false responsibility all the time. Levi, you all right? I'm trying to do a video here, and Levi's having a little bit of a hard time here. You want to say hi, Levi? Speaking of boundaries, I have boundaries with my dog. Say hello to everyone. Okay, now that I practice boundaries with my dog, let's get back to what we were talking about here. So we feel responsible for people's choices and their journey, and we wear it. It owns us. We just carry the weight of it, and that takes some work to work through, because the guilt adds on to it, and we become false burden bearers. Number 6 is very honest. We have a deep need for people to like us, and I'm going to tell you this straight up. This is not all evil. I think sometimes we make it a goal that we just walk through life just bulletproof. I don't care what people think. That's not a healthy picture of where we're going. You got to be compassionate and gracious to this. Yeah. I of course I want to interact with people that have a liking back. But what happens is when that desire takes over, it molds my decisions now. So while I'm compassionate to that and gracious to that, I can't let that drive my life. Does that make sense? Because we'll let our whole lives erode for the sake of keeping somebody being okay with us or liking us and pleasing them. And I've learned you can't impact somebody's life in the most effective way if your driving need of getting them to like you is a major force. Let me say that somewhat again. You can't impact people with great effectiveness if you have a driving need to be liked that swarms over your decisions. I didn't say that exactly the same way, but it's okay. You heard it in two different ways. You can rewind. But number 7 is we hate the possibility of someone being unhappy with us. When you establish a boundary, you're facing the fear of someone not liking you, someone being mad at you, someone being unhappy. And this will go right down to the root system at the bottom of the barrel of your heart. If you grew up with these kind of wounds, like if you felt like you could never please your parents, this thing in life, it's going to have a root system all the way down. No wonder people struggle with boundaries, because it's like 8 years old is hitting right there, 12 years old, your teenagers, whatever. Those times of never feeling like you were okay and your people-pleasing issues come up. So you have to recognize that's why this nerve is so strong, because the path of it digs down deep. So our internal compass has not been cultivated so that we can confidently say yes and no, and know when to step away from something, knowing when we can, know when to fold them, know when to walk away. You have to count to. Okay, anyways, I don't know the lyrics to that song, but anyway, so we hate that feeling. Number 8. The feeling of being misunderstood, upsetting someone, or offending someone cuts deep. This kind of ties into the previous one. But this is what drives us when we're telling somebody a boundary, hey, I can't come, or no, or we have to give 5,000 reasons. How many of you super explain your boundaries, right? Instead of, I can't make it, I'm sorry. We have to give 100, 1,000 reasons, because we're trying to establish a boundary, but we still want the person to like us and be okay with our boundary. That's why many times accepting that, okay, I may feel that feeling and I'm going to allow myself to feel it because I need to learn how to move in healthier directions. Now, I really believe when we get to the heart of our lack of boundaries come from a lack of a sense of self-love. We lack a sense of love and compassion in how we see ourselves. Those who struggle with boundaries the most, they struggle with self-love the most. In fact, they struggle with it so badly, they don't even bother looking at themselves. They just ignore themselves completely. And when you do try to talk to them, it's awkward. Like, hey, you need to take a break, or you need to honor, respect yourself a little bit more. It's like it doesn't compute. Because with a lack of self-love, there's a lack of self-care. And self-care goes back to our upbringing. It goes back to how we felt safe. And we live lives of just completely ignoring the issues of our heart. And many have masked it into Christian selfless giving, which we are called to give selflessly. But there is this thing that is so rampant in Christianity where we have ignored ourselves and just suppressed the pain and brokenness into endless serving. So we become like Martha. We don't know how to be Mary. We don't know how to be Mary and just sit and just be with someone. So it goes back to how we see ourselves through love. Self-love doesn't make you focus and obsess over yourself. It actually frees you up to love in a healthier way because you're giving out of what you've received. And you're learning to give to others what you're cultivating in your own life. Many people want to ask, and in the next video I'm going to do on how to set boundaries. Many want the rules. Give me the rules of what boundaries should I do here? What should I do here? We're focused on the how to. And what I have to direct them towards first is you got to learn what it means to live in love and what true love is. You got to start seeing yourself through love because love brings about value and respect. Many people have to make very difficult decisions with boundaries. You're not going to make them unless you start to understand the power of love. I talked about this in my book, God Loves Me, I Love Myself. And there were moments of critical decisions in my life where I not only needed to make a boundary decision. This decision led me into whole new directions. And the only way I was able to find the courage to make those decisions was to anchor my heart into learning what love is, what it looks like, and take steps out of that love. But we have to recognize it is unloving to not practice boundaries. It is an unloving act towards yourself to not practice boundaries. So that hits at the heart of the battleground of this in so many ways. So, in addition to this, number 10 is we have addictive and obsessive tendencies and patterns in how we relate. We ruminate over our relationship problems. We ruminate over our battles. We take them on and we feel like we need to do something about it. We're used to knee-jerk reactions. And many times wisdom will say, don't do anything right now. Sometimes wisdom will say, just listen, let it be, or wait. Now, without boundaries, we're always compulsive. Our unhealed brokenness trains us to live like addicts all the time, even though our continual acting oftentimes makes things worse. Many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so to say no or to have a boundary, it feels so wrong because the guilt rises up. That's why we got to learn about how to work through and walk through our guilt issues. Another thing we need to realize is that boundaries are work. They're work, and that's what makes it hard. We're so prone to taking the easy way out, and sometimes we get so tired and we just give in to the guilt. We give in to the anxiousness. We give into the compulsion. Number 12, like I said, we often focus on looking for rules and guidelines first. We make that our focus. And instead of just simply learning what love is, learning to get rooted in love. If you're focused on the rules, what you're going to do is your relationships are not going to be based on love. You're going to keep score. You're going to be driven by anger. You're going to be driven by fear, self-protection. We want everything to be rooted in love. So again, you're not going to become this harsh, We're not encouraging you down the road of becoming this harsh cement brick wall. We want to teach you to live in that membrane, and love is going to bring about that wisdom as you learn what love is and what love is not. That's why I encourage you go into my series on what is love and what love looks like and what love is not in those things. Because we want to get into compassion, and out of loving compassion, I'm being loving towards myself, and I'm also inviting you to enter into this love, because what I'm doing in the boundary is actually loving towards you. If you're rule focused, then you're just going to be looking at things through a law place, and you won't know the wisdom to go, okay, I don't need to put up this giant wall on this. I can let that slide because I live in love and it's all right. You start to learn the rhythm of wisdom that love can bring about in your journey. I'm going to give you in the last one, number 13. I'm going to give you the key thing that's kicking up when you're afraid to make a boundary. It's abandonment. The wound of abandonment is the deepest, lowest root system that drives just about everything in our life. Abandonment and the fear of abandonment. And this is rooted in what I call a rejection mindset, which I teach on. And this root of abandonment says, if I make this boundary, this person could leave me, I'm going to be alone. We deeply fear being alone. We deeply fear it. We fear people leaving us. And many people never make boundary decisions to walk in healthier patterns because they may lose relationships, and they fear that loneliness because they say, well, it's better to just have people around me. And so many people struggle to make that decision because oftentimes if you're around a lot of toxic relationships and you make a decision for boundaries and those people reject it, you may be a little bit lonely for a while because you're making a transition to establishing new, healthier relationship patterns. And that loneliness is not a bad thing. It may be a time for you to start tending to the needs of your heart that you ignored and didn't face and didn't deal with. But many people struggle with this transition because it's like, I'd rather just be around people than be by myself because their abandonment issues come up. This is the deepest fear. I'll be alone. And by myself, I'll be abandoned. So we fear it, and our fear of abandonment drives many, many decisions in our life. And so there's a number of resources I can recommend out of this. One is God Loves Me to Love Myself, especially the chapter that I get into about learning to make decisions based out of love. The root of abandonment I talk about in the book, Exposing the Rejection Mindset. And of course, my book on I Will Not Fear covers the ground about taking a stance against fear in your life and not letting it be the boss. But which of these do you recognize, this is what's making it difficult for me as well too? Which one stuck out the most? Do me a favor and let me know. And if you like this video, click the like button and subscribe. You can also go over to markdejesus.com and find out more about materials and resources that can be available for your life and for your journey. In the next video, I'm going to talk more about how to set healthier boundaries. I pray to be a blessing to your life and your journey. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Your brother from another mother will be back with more insights for your healing and freedom journey. But in the meantime, brothers and sisters, I'm out.